The last thing I saw at the theatre was a show, in inverted commas. It was a guy. I saw a guy on stage. He was a zoologist, and he was on the One show on BBC One. A guy
Oh yeah.
called George McGavin. Now, George McGavin went to Oxford University, and he was a zoologist for 30 years. Then, through his work about insects and what have you, the BBC picked him up, and the BBC picked up on him, and he was on the One show for 2 or 3 years on BBC One on the TV. Now that guy actually I was in the front row the other week, and I watched him listen to him give a talk about insects and bugs and dragonflies, butterflies. And he in my eyes, the guy's a little bit of he's like David Attenborough, except not animals, it's insects. The guy's fascinating about insects. And I was at the theatre watching the show. He had a massive screen on stage behind him where notes would come up appropriate to what he was talking about. And, he showed a painting called The Haywain. The Haywain was painted by John Constable. So in George McGavin's talk at the theatre the other week, it was an evening performance. We explain appropriateness of the painting The Haywain by the artist called John Constable. And you might think, well, hey, what's it got to do with insects, a painting like that? And he explained why, and said that there was wildlife in the painting. It's a master. The Haywain, the painting by John Constable, is a masterpiece. And yes, I would consider my life being poorer had I not seen the Haywain. Yes, well, I have had the privilege of reading 2 or 3 books since I've been living here at Avalon. I don't drink, I'm teetotal. I did used to smoke cigarettes. I've quit now, and I've been vaping now for about 5 years. So what I was doing, I would have a cigarette when I was smoking my ciggies. I'd have a cigarette in one hand. I'd be here in the garden in Avalon, and I picked up the novel Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. So having a crafty puff on my cigarette, I'd read 3 or 4 pages of Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, the novel, and I'd read half a dozen pages each time. Of course, as the months unwound, I read the entire book from cover to cover. Catch-22, for a guy like me, is inspiring. It's a witty, sharply witty book. And yes, I've read it from cover to cover. When I was at college in the 1970s, Godalming, sadly then, when my friends were sitting their A-levels, I was in hospital with depression. I remember talking at Godalming College with fellow students and them all saying, hey, Melvyn, you've got to read Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. Yes, today I can say I've read it from cover to cover. So of that, I'm very proud. And secondly, I've read another great book here, a masterpiece, which you'll have heard of. You'll know it by the movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is written by a guy called Ken, I think you pronounce his name, Kesey. And I've read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest also. For me, to read these books when, as I say, it's inspired me. And I love reading and read as much as I can. And may I just say, as a sufferer with depression, that it was Freud who said the interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. So how did I view that quotation? How do I sum up Freud? Simple. Here at Avalon, one of the staff, Danny will know who I mean, Ross, a nice guy, Ross said to Ross, I've come across this place in London, the Freud Museum. Ross took me on the train, escorted me, and we took in the Freud Museum in London. Well worth seeing if you get a chance, but it's a fabulous museum. And one thing I remember is a picture on one of the walls at the Freud Museum where Freud lived, and there's a picture on the wall by Salvador Dali, a picture on blotting paper in ink, a picture of Sigmund Freud. I try and read as much as I can, and but then again, with mental health, you've got to stay cheery in your mind. And I say to myself sometimes, it's an old cliche, but doesn't the saying go, the opera isn't over till the fat lady sings? So when it comes to life, you're not beaten really. You can do it and open another door, face another challenge, make another cup of coffee. And I bear in mind proverbs like that. And one of my favourite proverbs, how's your French, Martin? Because this proverb I know from France. Quand, you'll know that you do know what it is. Quand le chemin devient dur, les dieux se cheminent. Any ideas?
Can't say I do, no.
When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Now, I'm not Billy Ocean. I'm not Billy Ocean, but that is a great quotation.
Yeah.
Quand le chemin devient dur, les dieux se cheminent. When the going gets tough, the tough get going.